Joining us, a guy who appreciates offensive linemen for sure. NFL quarterback, Swiss Army knife football player, the pride of Pocatello, Idaho's Highland High School, Taysom Hill, on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Taysom, great to have you back on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
It's been a minute.
We were just thinking about that. Hey, off seasons are shorter and busier than ever, it seems, for a professional athlete. That said, you got to maximize the time you have off. So what's the best non-football related thing you've done this summer?
Oh, man, I've tried to play as much golf as possible.
Nice.
But I would say my wife and I took a trip to Europe, and we had a great time. Just spent 10 days exploring different parts of Europe, and it was a great time to just spend with the family and do some traveling.
What's the most days in a given year between workouts for you? How many days off do you ever take consecutively where you don't work out?
Yeah, man, I would say once we finish the season, I'll usually, take at least a week to 2 weeks off where I'm not doing anything. And then I will say I don't do a lot of football-related things, for the month of February, March, when I do go work out, I'm just in the gym. I'm just, running, exercising, doing stuff like that. And then as we start to transition and get ready to OTAs, I start to work into the football-specific things. But the most time I'll take off is about 2 weeks.
Well, like you said, you've played a lot of golf, or as much as you possibly can. More importantly, have you adequately embarrassed David Nixon on the golf course this summer?
We actually haven't played that much golf together, but we went to Hawaii, and we got it in when we were in Hawaii for sure. And I'll leave that up for you guys to discuss with him on how that went.
Yes. Oh, we love David, for the record, but we like to see him struggle a little bit.
My favorite thing, Taysom, is us watching BYU in a road game, and we're in the green room chatting, and then he'll just FaceTime you, and all of a sudden we're just chatting with you. Those are my favorite.
Yeah, it's great. It's what brother-in-laws do, right?
Absolutely.
But he's been awesome. You guys obviously know him well, but he's been a ton of fun to have as a brother-in-law, and then to be able to learn from his experience and through BYU and in the NFL and everything else has been a great resource.
Taysom Hill with us on BYU Sports Nation. What's your schedule like these days as you approach another NFL season and training camp?
Yeah, it's busy. So I go back next week, Wednesday. We report Thursday to training camp, and then, you go from 8 a.m. practice, and then your last thing for the day is at 9:30 at night. And so they're long days. So I would say right now is just trying to make sure that I maximize the time that I have with my wife, and then making sure that I'm physically and mentally prepared to go into camp and to perform at the best of my ability. So I spend a significant amount of time in the mornings, in the weight room, throwing, doing all the exercises that I feel like I need to do to get there. And then the afternoons, I try to maximize the time, with family before I say goodbye for a month.
At some point, as you approached your NFL career, obviously you want to be a starting quarterback in the league. When did you decide, and maybe there was a moment, maybe it wasn't, where, okay, I'm going to just help this team in any way possible? How did that come about?
Sure. That really wasn't my idea. I remember my rookie year, I went into meetings. It was Wednesday, so Wednesday was our first day of practice in preparation for the next week. And I'm walking in the team meeting, and I had a bunch of my teammates kind of looking at me, smiling, laughing. And I'm starting to wonder, like, what is so funny? Like, what is going on, you guys? And I had no idea that there was even a special teams, like, depth chart, that they posted on our board, and I had no idea that even existed. But all my teammates went and looked at it, and I showed up on the depth chart in special teams. And so they're all laughing at me, and then finally our special teams coach pulled me aside and said, "Hey, like, no pressure. Like, I'm gonna have you do some scout team kickoff stuff today. I'm gonna have you do some scout team punt return stuff today. But just, go run fast, do what we tell you to do, and I just want to fill it out." And so I did that Wednesday. I went in Thursday, and I found that I was starting on 3 of the special teams units, that week. And, Coach Payton pulled me aside and kind of told me how it all transpired. And what I realized was they had another game day active 46 roster spot available, and they wanted to give me an opportunity to do it. So as they looked at our inactive list, they looked at what I ran, what I jumped, and how big I was, and they said, well, why can't this guy help us? And that's how it transpired. And then, I was just really excited to have the opportunity to help the team, in any way that I could, and I'm grateful that they created an opportunity for me.
How did it evolve into tight end and running back and quarterback, of course, on offense?
That's a good question. I don't have the inside scoop for that, but I think through the preseason last year, being able to go through a training camp and everything with New Orleans for the first time, I was able to do different things in unique ways. And, we put in some zone read stuff just kind of on the whim and had some fun with it. And then we had some success doing that in the preseason. And, I think one of the things that makes Coach Payton so good for so long is that he gets the most out of his athletes. And he doesn't ask people to do what they're not able to do. And I think, Coach has always been known as a creative guy and loves to take chances and risks. And so he created an opportunity for me. And I remember as we first started this process, I knew that I was going to be on a short list. So I had a certain amount of, anxiety going into these games, because I knew that if it didn't go well, then, it was this experiment that was probably just going to go by the wayside, and I was going to be done doing it. But Coach did a great job of preparing me for it, showing me, what to expect and what to look for. And, we made the most of it. And so that role just continued to grow and grow. And, hopefully that's what happens this season.
Are you a quarterback who plays other positions or an athlete who plays quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I however you guys want to describe it is fine by me. But I will tell you, my mindset going into the NFL has always been like, I want to play quarterback in the NFL. And I realize that there's 32 NFL teams and that there's only, one starting quarterback on every one of those teams. And so I know how competitive and how difficult it is to get to that position. But my hope is that, like, I just want an opportunity to be one of those guys. And I'm content with that, and I feel like I can make the most of the opportunity when it arises. And but that is definitely the goal, is to play quarterback in the NFL. But I'm definitely a guy that loves to compete and wants to help the team win in any way that I can, and so I'll continue to do that as well.
We'll call it this: NFL quarterback and NFL athlete Taysom Hill with us on BYU Sports Nation. Taysom, it's obviously been a remarkable journey to this point. When you played your first significant NFL snaps, whether on special teams or in some other forum, I know it's hard to quantify, but how validating was that for you personally?
Yeah, it was super validating. I always felt like I was capable of doing it, and I think that for any athlete, as you make the jump from high school to college or college to the NFL, there is a certain amount of, anxiety of like, oh, can I do this? And I remember I had conversations with our quarterback coach in Green Bay. I had conversations with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay where they had all described like a moment in their careers or a moment when they've seen players have a moment of, a play, or they made a play or an experience of saying, like, I belong, like I can play in this league and I belong in this league. And I will say that I had moments like that when I was in Green Bay where I felt that I was good enough to play at this level, and I was confident in my ability to do it and compete at this level. But I think going into that, there's a certain amount of unsurety and everything else. And then I had moments like that in practice, and then I had moments like that in the preseason. But as you mentioned, I would say that I was ultimately, validated as I got into a regular season game, or I was playing in the playoffs, making plays. And I would say that, that process continues to evolve, where I continue to have those moments where I'm validated. And, as a child, the ultimate goal is to play at that level. And, it's been so much fun for me.
What's the biggest stigma you fight as a guy that's from Idaho that went to BYU in the NFL?
I don't think, honestly, I don't feel like I've been treated any differently because I went to BYU. I don't feel like I've been treated any differently because I grew up in a small town or played at a small high school. I think the NFL is made up of so many people with different backgrounds, and everybody knows that. And so I would say that there really hasn't been one particular thing that has been difficult for me. I think that there's stigmas of being a rookie that makes it difficult as you make that transition to the NFL. But my experience has been really, really positive. And then I would say as your teammates see you start to work and as they see you start to make plays, like any stigma just goes away and you're one of the guys. And that's been my experience.
You mentioned working with Aaron Rodgers for a short time in Green Bay. Obviously, you've been working around and closely with one of your good friends now, Drew Brees. How has he impacted your development as an NFL football player?
Yeah, I mean, going to New Orleans, working with Coach Payton and specifically Drew has been the best thing that could have happened for my young NFL career. Drew has been an incredible mentor. He's been a great leader, and he's been a great friend to me. And I just can't think of a better scenario or a better situation for me to be in right now. And I think, you can go into situations and guys know what works for them. And guys could easily not include you or not teach you or incorporate you on that schedule or that routine. And from the second that I got to New Orleans, Drew let me know what his routine was and said, no pressure, but you are welcome to be a part of it. And since day one I got there, I adopted it. And to the point where we get to the season and I spend from 6 a.m. in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, I spend that time with Drew, learning, watching film with him, at practice with him, and it's been the greatest thing.
Let's finish with this. You got a 56 rating in Madden. That's just dumb.
We took great issue with this, Taysom.
Yeah.
There was much yelling in Studio B.
What's your reaction to that nonsense?
No comment.
We commented for you.
Yeah, I honestly, it doesn't bother me one bit. The things that, and I learned this from, early days at BYU as I became friends with Max Hall and John Beck and Riley and all these guys that have come through there. BYU is not an easy place to play quarterback. And they had all shared experiences with me of man, what you need to pay attention to is, how your coaches view you, how your teammates view you, and you can't control everything else. And so I learned that from an early age, and that's definitely been, my mentality, moving forward. And so all the Madden stuff and everything else, again, that's all good and doesn't bother me one bit.
I believe we termed it as grade A baloney, and we're standing by it. So we'll do it for you. Taysom, it's great to catch up with you, man. Say hello to your buddy Corbin Kafusi for us from here in Studio B.
Zion Williamson as well.
Yeah. And we wish you continued success and luck, man. We're thrilled for you, and great to talk with you.
Okay, let me know next time you're in New Orleans.
You got it, man. Thanks, Taysom.
All right, talk soon. Bye.
Taysom Hill on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, you know why, we show how.
I found myself in New Orleans last summer, and I went to ward on Sunday morning, the New Orleans First Ward, and I look up, and passing the sacrament is this 6'2", 235-pound, hunky dude, and I was like, oh, that's Taysom Hill. That's Taysom. So
just doing his thing.
Went to the shout out to the New Orleans First Ward.